Hey, Steve.
Hey.
Hello.
Dragon. How
Hey.
do you pronounce your name?
Dragan.
Dragon?
Dragon.
Okay.
Yes, sounds good enough.
Yeah.
Good. Pleased to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Nice meeting you finally. Thanks for moving the meeting a bit. For me, at least, that was really helpful. So thanks.
No worries. No worries. It was an arbitrary time. We've been moving
jumping
it
around with a bunch of things. Yeah.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, it's hard to satisfy everyone. So just trying to get that majority, right?
Yeah. But I might do multiple in future, because I mean, there's still for people on PDT especially, or people workday US. We might need to do something in the evenings. Cool. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm in Serbia.
In Serbia, okay. Cool.
If you guys know where that is.
Yes, I know where that is. I'm sure everyone does as well. It's Canadian.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds up north near Russia. I don't know if I could actually place it on a map though.
It's south. It's further south than that.
Yeah, it's just north of Greece.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but pretty east. Yeah.
I totally forgive you. Don't worry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. European geography is not amazing.
No worries. I'm kidding.
I took one of those pick out the country tests on a web app or something, and it was horrendously bad in the Middle East as well as Eastern Europe or Eastern Europe. So I apologize.
No worries. I wouldn't say for myself that either history or geography are my strong sides. So it's okay. We have other focuses.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully scholarly communication and research, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I've at least took a look through a couple of the projects that you're working on with Unfold Research, and I forget the other one.
Notebook, if you're thinking of that one.
Yeah, I think so. Which is super cool.
Yeah, there aren't many projects in academia, so I'm always super excited when I find some people and teams that are working on something concrete. There's a lot of just talk in the academia and visions of some utopian future, but there's very little actual practical progress. So finding makers and builders is always super exciting. So yeah, really glad that I found you guys.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited to see if maybe there's something that we can work on together, because I also feel like the academic space is a difficult space to build these things in and get the sort of early traction that you need to make it all work. So, and I'm sure you've found that in your roles as well. So
yep. I definitely would never say that it's an easy community and an easy industry. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a huge amount of potential, and I saw that you retweeted the Research Hub thing by Brian Armstrong.
Yep.
Yesterday, and so people definitely see the utopian future and the killer app in quotes that can help everything hang together.
Yeah, I was actually super surprised because I found out about Research Hub literally yesterday, and I was really surprised how many similarities there is between that and what also Unfold is trying to achieve. But yeah, again, like Brian himself said, you can even start building, but you need to bring some value to the users and something that they can use and something that will really push them in a direction that they will continue using it instead of just being initially and for a short period of time charmed by your idea. Because there aren't many builders, but even among projects that have been built up to a certain level, not a lot of them are really like startups in a sense that they're trying to find something that brings value and tries to like just capture the audience and well, achieve some kind of product market fit or whatever. There are mostly like simple implementations of bigger ideas, and they then just die. So yeah, it's a really tough market, but yeah, here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Unfold Research for a couple of minutes? Because we've talked about it a bit, but I'm not clear on what it is because I didn't go off and follow your links.
If it's totally fine with you, I can
go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. So the idea is basically to make discovery and sharing of supplementary research materials much easier, and to build an opportunity for academics to fund their research and just get a salary from being active in the community. And the way we achieve that is that you have like this linking idea where you can link together different research papers and supplementary materials, and you have a voting system on top of it. So you can just vote on the content, you can downvote, and you can basically curate the content, earn reputation points, and those reputation points are basically the metric that will be used to, well, fund your research and give you some income. So that's kind of very simple overview.
What is the unit of content?
The unit of content, like it's not one, it's just like this entry that can be of various types, like whether an annotation of or note or full research paper or a project or like code repository, but it's preferred to be one distinct thing and not a couple of those linked together, but like just one small unit, one small logical unit, right? So yeah. The browser extension should have been launched like 2 weeks ago, but then I discovered the bugs, right? So I expect to launch it in like the next 2 weeks. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Cool.
That's super exciting. And are you like, what is it? Is it you working on it? Are you part of a company or a university or individual?
Yeah, I'm all alone for now. Again, it's really tough finding people that are willing to put some serious time into it. And one of the reasons that I'm really interested in also learning more about your project in Curvenote is this idea of creating an editor for academics that is not necessarily just part of one product, but something that can be perhaps even shared among different projects, in like similar sense that Jupyter notebooks themselves, right, aren't tied to just one particular thing, but are a concept that can be implemented in different ways. But you guys are extending that, and that seems like a really nice opportunity for other projects to benefit from it and also help you at the same time by just, well, making you more discoverable and using your product. So that's kind of where my main interest lies, I would say.
That's super exciting. Yeah, I would love some more projects who are actively building in this space to use and help out with our editor, which is like all of our editor side of things is open source. And so that's, well, yeah, maybe you can follow up with you outside of this.
Yeah. But you found, I guess you discovered this, okay, our open source stuff, Dragan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And have you been playing with Curvenote? I know you signed up and stuff. Have you discovered much about it? Or
I did play for some time. Haven't spent too much time with it because I'm focusing on my own stuff currently. But I do plan to actually take just a deeper dive into the code and possible integrations. I did see like the different features that you guys are posting on Twitter, so I'm following that. And yeah, it seems really promising and exciting. And yeah, that's why I'm here to learn more about it as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, cool.
Super stoked.
Yeah, I'm all zoomed in. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, I was going to go through a couple of things today on the just on the versioning. because we're preparing some material a bit to better explain how the versioning works, and maybe what steps the versioning is going to take. And the versioning is all connected to that sort of fundamental block-based representation. And I don't think we've properly explained it. Well, not explained it in detail before with pictures. So I'm gearing up for a picture-led bunch of blog posts to sort of take people through things. And this is I'm experimenting on everybody here this morning. So let me. So I'm glad you're here, Dragan, because that gives me somebody directly to talk to who doesn't. Because Liz and Ro and I already know that they know this inside out, so it's a bit weird trying to explain it to them. So it's good. So, sort of run through this. Well, version control with Curvenote is all based around that unit of content that we have, which is a block. And I've drawn a block out here as a block of text. But you'll have seen in Curvenote that can be a block of text. It can be a Jupyter output. It can be a code cell from Jupyter. It can be an image. It can be a citation. Maybe it can be an equation at some point. We don't know about that yet. But and that block itself once it's made, it has a sort of a place to live, a holder, and then it has a version history on it. So when you come along and in the Curvenote editor and create just a single block, you're creating one of these units, which is independently versioned, and you'll recognize the badges that show you which version it is. And then everything else is based on how we manipulate and construct these blocks. So another concept, as well as blocks, is something called drafts. And because we're dealing with content, when in the app, when you have a cell of content already written, and you go in and edit, and then when you double click, the cell decoration will change to this sort of yellow mark here. And what's actually happening behind the scenes is a draft is created. And a draft's way to think about a draft is a change set. So this block plus the change set results in whatever your next version would be. And when you're typing away in the editor, collaboratively, you're creating that change set. And then when you hit save, you save to a new version. So what you're doing constantly in the editor is while you're editing, you're constantly creating new drafts, which persist across browser sessions, which can have multiple people come in and edit on simultaneously because of the real-time editor. And then you're saving things and just building up a version history. So over time, you end up with many versions of this block, all stacked up in this holder over time. And whenever you create a new version, you always create a new. Whenever you start editing, you always create a new draft based on the latest version. So that's what happens. That's what happens in the app. And just to go and show that, if I go back to my projects, should I have a testing project?
I feel like this has some relation to Dragon, what we were talking about earlier with your side of things of like what's the unit of how you're actually sharing, and that sort of upvoting piece and the curation side that you're working on at sort of on the Unfold side of things. And I think what's really interesting about this in the context of open access science is that there's licenses that can be attached to this, and then there's reuse capability across projects and across your own work that you can start to remix and reuse aspects of this over time.
Yeah, well, component-based approach makes sense, not just for programming, but also for user experience.
Yeah, and I really haven't, there's like some of these concepts that exist in like content management systems like blogs and like WordPress and some of those other sites, but the actual content reuse really isn't I haven't seen that as much in the academic system in any sort of real way, maybe.
So as far as I know, like it's been popularized by Notion. Notion was the first like really popular app that had blocks, and then also Rome Research somewhat like improved on the concept of reusability because in Notion, like maybe you have connected blocks, but they aren't really reusable, and Rome is kind of modified that. But now everybody is heading towards these like blocks, components, or smart chips, as Google is calling them for
Smart
the next
chips
year.
with Canvas.
So,
yeah. No, that's definitely my summary of the ecosystem as well.
Can I ask a question about, okay, so blocks are versioned. Are you versioning the order of blocks, or is that versioned at all? How is that handled?
Inside of an article is the article itself is a block, and it has references to children. So it's actually similar to how Notion's architecture works. Is there's a container element that is a block in its own right that has a draft which contains all of the orders and location of the children within it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. I have my diagram ready. That one. And that's why, and yeah, exactly. So there's a container, and the intricacies are, though, when you're using it a bit, there's something they need to, I guess, learn to start with, is that you can create, because the article's a block and it's the container, when you start editing, press that edit button, you create a draft of the container, and which has nothing in it at any one time. If you hit save version, you'll get a new version, but the version will contain all the previous blocks. And then as you build up a draft, that will open drafts to the individual blocks. And then when you save version, the whole thing will be saved like that. Which means I think for new users as well, there's quite a lot going on. As in, when you're moving things forward and writing new content, publishing stuff, continually hitting save version, you've actually got this type of graph over time evolving, where your article is sort of like the snapshot down these different queues. And you can do lots of things. That currently is really flexible in terms of you could come along and decide, open up a new draft here and decide to revert this block to version 1. And then you have an article which is a new version of the article, but you've referenced back in time for that individual block. So it's very powerful. And I think it's going to take, and we're evolving the UI. So what we want to do at some point is make it clearer what's going on with the various drafts versus the various version history for the blocks, to help people sort of figure out where they are.
I think this is another piece that, with like when you compare it to a Rome Research or a Notion, all of their information is at the latest. It's a real-time editor, and so it's always at this endpoint, and that doesn't lend itself as easily to reuse of specific components across projects at this individual version. So our UI and architecture is geared towards that sort of reuse, cross-project reuse at the sort of very individual level, but it does make the wiki easy editor, like I'm always on the latest draft, everybody's up to date, and that sort of thing is certainly more complicated in our user interface at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like if you're interested in the latest version of everything, it's easy to figure out if you're at some previous version and just display some indicator. And I'm not sure if you ever planned that or whatever. So it's a question more having a comparison between two different documents or something like that. It seems it would be not trivial, but very easy with this system put in place. So
I think we could do something pretty ugly easily as a first cut, and then maybe figure out how to do that. in a nicer way. There's some elements just coming through, and Liz hasn't seen this yet. So this is development environment, and let's do it the other way with this trackpad. So now what we've done in the app is we've synced up in the same way as was previously only in our Chrome extension, where now it's just going to alert you with this other icon to say that a newer version exists, and you can come in here and decide to use the latest.
And that use latest button is new as well. Is that right?
That use latest button is new and should be disabled, I reckon.
And is that just
because I'm not in edit mode?
Yes.
So I'm very lucky we're on the development environment here. The whole point of this. But yeah, so that button will be there when you are. We want that here when you use latest. I also made the buttons full width for the minute because we had some, layout things going on.
So is the use latest then for the entire notebook, or is it just per?
It's just for this cell.
Just for the cell. Okay. And
that will work soon.
Something's happening. We just can't see it.
No. Right. Here we go. This is another thing that was going to be fixed very soon. I've done this so many times. I'm trying to change the version of a Jupyter cell output without realizing that it's actually coupled to the version. And I can't change the output without changing the version. I can change the version of the code cell. So this is this UI piece that I've been talking about.
Yep.
This needs coupled.
Are you familiar, Dragon, with Jupyter notebooks?
Somewhat. I play with them, but definitely not an expert.
Yeah. So let's go over here. Look, use version 1 there. Use latest there. Simples. Yeah. But that notebook bug that catches me often. That is going to be resolved soon. And it's a UI issue. This will also do things nicely here. So the edit, we still edit. And then we see we jumped there from V1 all the way up to V2 and created a draft on it. And that's because at the moment in the web app, it's only possible to create a draft off the latest. If I go and do this now, you start to get into a little warning space where it's basically telling you the current draft is not based off the latest version. And that's because I've selected here. So that's a bad state to be in. And if you find yourself in that state, it's a matter of discarding the draft and getting back to the top of the stack. I guess we aim over time to not let people get into that state. But
one question. So can you alter the history of a specific block? Like you just showed, like, can you create a new branch basically from some older version, or literally delete some of the versions?
You can't delete. I don't think we'll let people delete. As in, we're trying to think of this as immutable.
Yep.
But I think this has definitely been requested, Liz, has it? This sort of thing?
Yeah.
As in, I want to be able to come from here and create a draft that maybe leapfrogs onto version 9.
Yeah, because right now you can have one of those versions selected as what you want in your current article or notebook, and that can be there and live there. But when you go into edit, it's going to jump into that most recent version.
Yeah.
Which honestly is better because there's still some way that people have had like old drafts, and I've gotten into things and I'm like, no, now I have to go back through, and luckily it's all saved. But this is definitely where, like, I at least prefer that. So you can still copy paste, which is nice.
Yeah.
You don't lose anything.
So this type of dragging up of content and getting it into a new version at the top of the stack is one. We definitely need some type of merge. So imagine that sort of creating of a draft and bringing that in at the top is like a short-lived branch, like a one-step branch. We weren't keen on a long-lived branching model.
Yeah, so it's like a rebase instead of merge. Do you really want to have a merge, or it's literally just a new version that overwrites?
It'll be a new version, but the user will be able to do a merge.
So like a UI-based merge.
Yeah, for example,
where they can sort of see from previous.
Imagine we provide because we're in the Chrome extension now. Imagine we provide a UI that allows you to figure out what and reconcile these two versions before creating a new version. So a merge in that sense.
Okay, so differences between the version are those, sorry. So yeah, differences between versions, are they like minimal differences, or like in the Git sense, or are they in the sense of like, what's the name of the perforce or something, when you have a full new version, not just a difference?
In terms of how it's stored?
Yeah.
We are just storing everything.
A full new version.
Yeah, full new version at this stage. Yeah.
So could you perhaps give an example of a use case where somebody would want to see both versions and then do a merge manually?
I think if you like, especially like as you're editing something over time, like a paragraph, for example, and you want to see a previous state where you maybe had something and you want to bring that information forward. The workflow right now is surf backwards in time, see that version, copy and paste the piece that you wanted, and then bring that forward sort of manually, and then just like append it to the new version.
Yeah, so it's not like Git merge tools that are doing something functionally. It's more just there for a reference.
Yeah. Okay. And then the UI could be a code Git style diff like this, or it could be a more suggest mode Google Docs overlay type UI. I guess it's whatever's easiest for somebody to be able to reconcile those two versions into a single piece of content, and then we store the whole new block. So there's not something like with hunks coming on or trying to be efficient about.
Yeah. We do that on the draft side of things. So that is a diff-based operational transform side of things. So we actually do have all that information, but it's at that stage is too granular to like it's keystrokes and that, which isn't a helpful way to show that to anyone who's actually consuming that diff, I suppose.
So like as far as I know, it has to be diff based if you're doing a collaboration live. That's the way to go about it. So that's why you're doing it that way. But then when you're actually committing the block, then it's just full version. Makes sense.
Yeah. So if we call that, we definitely have this sort of pull forward behavior, and the other behavior is forks rather than branches. And the reason why the concept of the fork is because of the permissions model is based around projects. But sometimes imagine if you want to be able to use a shared resource over in your project, you want to guarantee it'll live even though something happens to that project or the project becomes closed to you. So you create a fork, which then you're not just referencing into the other version. You have a version of it in your project with its own history. So it is a bit like a branch, but it's more about the concept of GitHub concept of fork was closer because it's it helps you think about the ownership of that whole branch for longer.
From my experience, like whenever you mention forking and branching to people in academia that aren't like hardcore developers, it's utterly confusing. And so And the question I also had, are you literally copying the data and holding the reference, or just holding the reference, or just copying the data? Like, what kind of forking is it?
At this stage, it is a reference, and so the permission and the data lives with the original project, and so it's more like a point to this. But that's like even in our uses so far. So maybe Steve's going to show like copying something out.
Yeah.
So
if we copy this, so we get the sort of hash, the OXA link, and then when we come and reuse this over here, I'll just put it anywhere. Then that's a reference at this stage. A forking ability would allow us to, instead of just copying a reference, to actually fork the block into my project, and then it lives there and maintains a link back to where it came from.
And you can use, like, you can update to the latest version of that original block, right? And all of that.
Upstream changes, yeah.
So now your version 6 button should actually work with the use latest.
Yeah, it will. Hopefully, see. Yeah, because I'm in the article. Yeah,
it does work.
Yeah.
It does work in an article. It's the notebook it's the notebook where we try to enforce this coupling, which keeps it happy when we do a round trip to Jupiter, is where the UI isn't broken, isn't working.
So then, question on the forking. So say I were to copy in an equation, which is where like this would be great because I don't have to LaTeX every equation 300 times because we all use the same ones for every paper.
Yeah.
Then say I like my equation captions now, so I could copy out something from a different paper, put it into this article, or one article to another, and then I could update that caption here, and it would be only for this article.
Yeah.
What you're saying? That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's certainly also where like that's happening like continually in the academic literature, but there's no way currently to push those changes upstream, and that hopefully what we would be able to do is keep the reference to the original piece and then have the ability through the UI to push those changes back into a centralized place and improve them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I imagine. Like I've got an equation index, it's hidden right now, but in my like publications project, just to have like all the equations I've ever had, and I would love to just have like blank ones with a general caption that I could then link out and kind of have more details, like, okay, in this paper I'm using this like this, or here's a little more context. So yeah, that would be amazing. I'm not sick of teching equations, not at all.
And I also think for like figures and those sorts of things, especially around conceptual figures, it allows and encourages reuse and upstreaming of and sort of like community resources around educational concepts and like review papers and those sorts of things, which are very different than what I suppose what the scientific machine optimizes for at the moment.
It'd be cool too if like for images and stuff, it had like a citation of where it was from originally that you could just click, yes, I would love to cite this. Because I know I've republished papers and stuff, so having to cite those.
Yeah, and there's certainly all of the sort of similar pieces. I like how your new user is Steve too. You're very
there was a Steve 2, there's a Steve test, there's a Steve test 2. There's but we haven't planned out the forks in too much detail from the top level. But how would the version numbers work then, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's like I think maybe over time we actually like steer away from actually showing the number, because that's freaked a number of people out that they're like now scared to like add new history because they're on like 56 or something. And and so it's
easy
like
getting the 3-4 digits.
Yeah. So I think like over time the UI sort of phases that out maybe. and just shows you more the time, or and then also the ability to hide some of those or archive or tag or something.
Yeah, I was just about to do that. Exactly. So I actually have more meaningful sort of stuff going in here about this means something to me. Yeah. Commit
And so
messages.
you're sort of editing history, but only the metadata of the history there. Which is I'm curious, Dragon, of your, or if any of those things are, I saw you nodding along at some points in that, or what your thoughts are.
Yeah, this is super amazing. So basically, like having some sort of ability to do bidirectional linking and just reuse pieces of content that you already created or like somebody else has created in the past. It's awesome. Like there's no other comment. Just figuring out the details of the UI and UX, how to make it just like clear to users would be a pain, will be a pain. But yeah, as far as functionality goes, this is an awesome way to go.
Yeah, I think it does, like a lot of the goals of something like Rome Research that you mentioned are similar to that, of being able to reference and reuse content as you're going. And that's, I haven't been following as closely, but I would imagine that reusing project between or content between projects without this sort of referencing system is either impossible or very difficult.
Yeah, they have a different kind of like those references, like either you copy full data or you hold a reference to it, but I'm not sure there is versioning in any way, and like you're doing versioning, and again it's kind of block level, so I know I think the Rome Research is not primarily like what it's trying to achieve is not so much creating immutable data that you can rely upon and just do some complex exchange of information. It's more about note taking. I don't want to like downgrade Rome.
Yeah, no, I mean it has very different goals, I think, and especially like us enforcing this idea of immutability and referenceability in the graph that we're creating leads to all sorts of other challenges and opportunities and UI difficulties.
Because this might be something this is something good to explore when you're in there. Is if you go into any of the blocks, you can open an API, and you'll get like the API response for the various things. But we are slowly sort of building out the graph as we go. And we don't have a lot of the two-way stuff on yet, but it is coming bit by bit. But the idea is then from a block, you can start to reference out to its context, to its container, back through its version history. So like from here, I can click out and link and then get all the versions for that block. We can get the project that it was in and any drafts related to it, etc. So as we keep building out the graph, we can then start putting the ability to traverse it back in the UI. So come along to a block and find out where that's being used, and move out.
No, this is awesome. This is definitely something that's much needed. So yeah, and I don't think like I'm trying to also think about other apps. So Rome Research definitely not. Notion, I don't think they do have some sort of versioning on the document, but I don't think it's this detailed. And we'll see like what Google Docs is gonna do, and they had also versioning in the past, but again, not at the level of Smart Chip. So yeah, this is definitely different in a good way. So yeah.
Yep.
Can I ask what is IOXA, or however that
it was our original company name?
Oh,
yeah. that we changed because of the two O's was difficult to pronounce.
Although you nailed it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If we were only talking to you, we would still be IOXA for sure.
Yeah, being less familiar with English helped me pronounce it correctly.
Cool. I was just going to say that over in it's a similar story with versioning in the notebook. With the same thing with the notebook as the container. You can come along, create a fresh notebook, and just version an individual cell, if you like, and save individual cells. But really, for it to be visible at the platform at the moment, the idea is you come along and you version the entire notebook, which is why we've got some more work to do to simplify this UI further. But something we did recently is just sort of make the notebook first class up top there to make it very easy just to keep working, executing the notebook, and then hitting save version as sort of the primary workflow. And then if you really do want to go in or need to go in and revert a cell or do something specific, you still can, because you have all the cell controls here with the different versions. And we don't show the versions of the outputs because that's coupled to the selected cells. And then we sort of do an output diff as well as a code diff between the two versions. Cool. And let me bring this one up, which is more lightweight. I think this is in the wrong environment. It is. So I'll just unlink it. One thing we have to do at the moment is, this is useful for some times when, if there's a template notebook, somebody can grab it, download it from the system. The notebooks stay linked out in the wild, as it were. They move the settings. Because we stamp in the hashes to the notebook metadata. So these notebooks go out and they go up on GitHub, or they go out anywhere, or they get sent over Slack. And if somebody loads them up with and has our extension installed, then it still links back to the project, provided you have access. And if you don't, you can unlink, which clears out the metadata, and then you can go off and save the notebook to your own project, which is the closest we have to forking right at the moment. But obviously you're losing all your backlinks. But you can get a fresh notebook from a template. Let me run this, and show latest should also be here. But at the notebook level. No, it isn't, because it's not the development extension. Okay, but once that goes out, then we have a show latest button up here, and I've also moved this button up to the top, so it's just more
nice.
Consistent. It's just, yeah. Because I think again cool. that was something Lindsay was.
Lindsay will be very happy with that. Yeah. She's doing this constantly.
Opening up with latest. Yeah. Cool. I didn't have anything else I was going to cover particularly. Is there anything else we want to look at?
That's super cool. I'm looking forward to a blog article, Steve.
Yeah.
of versioning.
I'm going to tidy these up a little bit and then talk about that. Yeah. I guess the big difference, actually, this is the point I was going to make as well, with the notebook, is we don't have any drafts over here.
Yeah.
And we're not going to, are we? I don't think. This is no intermediate drafts. We post a whole new version every time that sort of overwrites on the notebook front. So that's more atomic.
You probably want to have drafts, right? Like if you're an author and you send somebody for a review and you're now making some changes, you don't want to notify them every time that there is a new version. Like you want to finish what you're working on and only then make it available. Again, maybe that's all can already be achieved with permissions and or some other way.
Yeah, I think Another piece that I've sort of been thinking on is there's like an idea of like suggestions, which is like maybe like a short-lived pull request, sort of, if we're taking the GitHub terminology, which is not really creating a new version. It's not really a fork, but you want to be able to just like show some edits, get those quickly to authors, fix a typo, improve the work. And that it seems different than the whole draft creation fork workflow, and sort of like optimizing for those fast edits to back to the main branch.
Doesn't Google Docs have that, like when you enter suggestion mode or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I think there's something really similar there. Observable HQ also has some good examples with their notebooks for suggestion mode, which maybe is a little closer to how ours would work, because they are like, you fork in the UI of the notebook, and then you're able to merge it back in right away. But I would like to get the Google Docs like suggestions in there at some point. I think that UI is certainly more complicated. I don't know, Steve, if you've thought at all about that, of like, is there a difference between something like a suggestion for a typo or something that is in a different camp than a full-blown fork? Like, I mean, when you're suggesting to a GitHub project, for example, you have to create a fork, create a branch, open a pull request, make your changes, open a pull request, get that pull request removed. And there's like 6 steps for like suggesting a typo change, which is just not going to happen if people don't even like the word fork.
Yeah.
that sort of idea is it's just too much work.
Yeah.
But
well,
making it more accessible to people that aren't familiar with the entire flow with branches.
Yeah. It's just change it and like a notify author button. And so it's like a step and a half to, I see something wrong in technical docs or in a typo or something, and then just fix it.
Yeah, if you talk about like on GitHub, there are suggestions. Somebody who is reviewing can like actually edit, and you can actually accept the change or not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
And that's really compact, and that can be about this exactly one typo, and there's an accept thing there, and that's all there is. Sort of feels different to a big review process, which is maybe the pull request thing, where you have everything, you're standing back from it, you're saying I've looked at this, and that's a bit. First it's too heavy. If that's what you have to do for every change, which was Rowan's point there. But I guess then when there is a lot of changes, that helps you give some structure to them and organize conversations around them. But that feels like a different exercise, really.
I think the peer review, I was sketching something on that the other day. It's a very different exercise, because often like you want to stop giving visibility to either different peer reviewers or like there's permission changes and forking in there and all of that looks a bit different.
Yeah.
But like from GitHub standpoint, when you start a review, it's just a collection of different suggestions and comments, and like the general comment that you write for the entire pull request review. So like presentational, it might be different, and on the level of permissions, to have a full-blown peer review pipeline, but functionally, it seems that it would be just a collection of different suggestions and comments.
With some UI. Yeah, it was some, so with some UI around them to, because I find that annoying about GitHub is the fact that I can't at any point in time reach into a line of code, because at any point in time I can reach into a line of code, select it, and then share a link with somebody somewhere else, but I can't just go and make a comment there and direct somebody to a conversation about this if it's not in the PR. Do you know what I mean? So I can't just go to the latest version of the code, browse in, and then start leaving comments in there, or start a conversation around that bit. There has to actually be a PR open.
Maybe with their discussions now, I'm not sure.
Okay, I haven't tried the discussions. Yeah,
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that angle. I haven't seen that really as. Yeah, anyways, that's cool.
I thought that was more of a sort of requirements project level type discussions rather than reaching into. Here's this line of code that I was looking for. And
one of the other things that I was thinking on, like on that suggest changes and review side in GitHub, is sometimes, or at least in the peer review process, you want to have somebody else review your review before you submit it back to the author. And so like you have 3 people who are reviewing these things, and then you have an editor who's reviewing all 3 of those changes and then getting that as a cohesive unit back to the person working on it. I don't know. It's just like currently how peer review is set up is like very staged and formal. And maybe tools like this and similar tools like GitHub change that, or change the community practices around that. Because I've certainly seen that in Journal of Open Source Science, is the peer review is very, very different. And people say that it's much more helpful and engaging because you don't have that 3 levels of removal from the people who are commenting.
Getting some strong inception vibes there.
yeah. And also from like an architecture point of view, it's just like, well, from a software point of view, it's like so complicated. But it has different people outcomes as well, and behavior outcomes.
Okay, I gotta jump. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about some things, and really looking forward to having all the different forking, spooning, knifing capabilities. Hopefully I see you next week as well. Until then.
It would be fantastic. We also generally have Wesley here as well, so he's another researcher. So it would be fantastic to have you again.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cool. Right,
bye, Dragan. Cool.
Random thought here. Is it possible to create a, say, suggestion block in that, so now we have like, we have blocks, we have image blocks. Could it be some sort of like draft of a block where someone has gone in and made suggestions, not comments, but necessarily just like suggestions to actually change it. So it'd be like a draft, but it's a suggestion that you could then accept some of those changes. And then that's the new version of the block. You know what I mean? Like make it a different type of block. I don't know, because obviously I'm not writing this, but I'm just like, is there a way maybe, because I guess I could see it as like there's comments, like you would highlight and comment on something, but there's specifically like, okay, this word should actually be spelled like this. So you select it, and you, instead of saying a comment, you create a suggestion, which creates a suggestion block kind of thing that would then have those fixes. And then you could maybe accept or deny them within that block. And then it would either save like the new one or the old one. Again, not sure how this works. You are the coding masters, but I'm just wondering if it could be a different one that you can then go through and play with.
Yeah, I think it's like that idea is, it's like if you look at sort of how Google Docs is comments are very similar to suggested changes in that they're like off to the side and they show what's actually changed. And so that's, I think, was actually more what I was thinking, is that there is something that is a different piece that's, I think, internal to that block structure, similar to how the comments are internal to that block, that allow you to identify a change and suggest changes to that. And the difference there is that they're not part of the draft. The permission management is like view or comment level permissions where you can suggest these changes. And
what did you mean internal?
From a database perspective, the scoping of it is at the block level. You have a block, and blocks have comments, blocks have drafts, blocks have versions, blocks have suggestions. And the permission management can be done independently to that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess the question too is who's allowed to leave comments and suggestions? Is it anybody? Can you change those settings? I don't know. This just led me down a rabbit hole.
Right.
If there was like a special, like, this is the suggested block. Would you like to accept what's in there? And just hit yes, because the number of times it's like, oh, you put a period instead of a comma or something. Yes. Just check. Don't make me redo this, but I was just thinking.
Yeah, I guess sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, in the peer review process, I remember getting reviews back from geophysics, and like one of the reviews is you forgot like some grammar or punctuation in this, and then it takes me 5-10 minutes to like find the line that they were referring to and find then that's on the PDF and my most up-to-date version of the PDF, which has some of the changes already associated with it. And then I found the LaTeX thing, and then I like forget what I was doing, but maybe then make the change, recompile, and then I have to say, okay, in this new line, that has been fixed. And then at the end of the day, I have to go through all of that, update my line numbers at the review side of things. And it like fixing a period takes like 20, 30, 40 minutes, honestly, because you're reporting on those changes, and it should have just been like a 2-second, yep, thanks, accepted. I don't know. Anyways, that's my rant.
The review process is like one of my ultimate dreams. Like just seeing this and then being in the review process, and it's been so ugly for me for so long, and I'm like, this would be the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
Yeah. So those permissions levels and stuff there, some will evolve over time. Some of them is already in place, but just everybody gets them. If you're a collaborator at the moment, you get. We haven't sort of split out levels on that, but it's all possible.
And we don't have anonymous commenting either right now, which we'll need to bring in at some point.
I feel like where it is now is definitely like a safe place to be. It was just more of like down the road thinking about it. But in general, just working with collaborators and having that, like, you're in charge, here's the suggestion block.
Cool. Well, I've got to run, and our hour is up as well.
Thanks for hosting, Steve, as always.
No, you're welcome. Good to see everybody. And until next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.